Recently had a senior associate reach out to me looking at partnership over the next year or two, but wondered how he would be able to be successful at client development as an introvert. So here's a question I want you to sit with for a second. Think about the best rainmaker you know at your firm, the person whose name comes up in every lateral conversation, every pitch meeting, every partner retreat, the one who seems to have the clients calling them instead of the other way around. Now, ask yourself, are they actually the loudest person in the room, or are they just the one that people trust the most? Because those are two completely different things. And if you spent your career believing that business development belongs to the extrovert, to the people who thrive at cocktail receptions and work a room like it's a sport, then this episode is going to reframe some of your assumptions. I'm Andrew Wilcox. This is a Lateral Brief. Today we're talking about prospecting and client development for introverts. Whether you're a senior associate trying to figure out how to build a book business before partnership decisions get made, or a partner or counsel trying to break through to the next level, the conventional advice you've been almost certainly given doesn't fit the way your brain works. So let's talk about what actually does. The myth and the data. Let's start with a number that surprises almost every attorney I share it with. 60% of lawyers are introverts. Not 40, not 30, 60. That's according to Eva Wisnik, who has administered the Myers-Briggs personality test to more than 6,000 attorneys since 1990. In certain practice areas, intellectual property being the most notable, the number climbs closer to 90%. Think about that. The majority of people in your building, the people being asked to go out and develop business, attend mixers, work referral networks, and close deals, are operating in a system that was designed by and for the other 40%. The Rainmaker model in most law firms was built around extroverted behavior, the big personality, the phone call instead of the email, the client dinner that goes until midnight, the conference glad handing. If you're wired differently, the message you've likely absorbed, consciously or not, is that business development is just not your thing. That message is wrong, and I've seen proof of it for over 20 years. The introverts who have figured this out don't try to become extroverts. They build a different playbook, and in many respects, it's a better one. Your wiring is not your weakness. Before we get into tactics, let's talk about what you're actually working with. Introversion is not shyness. It's not social anxiety. It's not a lack of confidence. It's about where you get your energy and how you process information. When you're asked a hard question, you go inside first. You think before you speak. You restore energy in quiet, not in crowds. Here's what that actually looks like in a client relationship. You listen more carefully than most attorneys in the room. You remember the details. You follow up with precision. You don't oversell, which means when you do say something, clients believe you. You create the kind of environment in a one-on-one conversation where someone feels genuinely heard. In the legal market, trust is the product. And the qualities that build trust, attentiveness, reliability, intellectual depth, the ability to make someone feel like the most important person in the conversation, those are introvert superpowers. The problem isn't your wiring. The problem is you've been trying to use someone else's playbook. The introvert's playbook and what actually works. Strategy 1. Own the written word. Introverts almost universally communicate better in writing than in real-time conversation. That's not a weakness in 2026. That's an extraordinary advantage. Thought leadership, client alerts, bylined articles, LinkedIn posts, a short-form newsletter on a niche issue in your practice area does something that working a cocktail party can never do. It reaches people you haven't met yet. It allows someone to encounter your thinking before they've encountered you. And when they do meet you, the dynamic is already different. They came to you. One concrete step right now. Pick one issue in your practice area that you know better than most general practitioners. A regulatory shift, a recent court decision with underappreciated implications, a pattern in how companies are handling a particular risk, and write 500 words about it. Post it on LinkedIn. Send it to 5 clients and 5 prospects with a personal note. You have now done more business development than most of your peers did this week. Firms like Kirkland have long coached attorneys that reputation building through writing and speaking should occupy about 20% of your business development time, with the remaining 80 going to direct relationship work. If the idea of 80% direct outreach feels overwhelming, start with 20. Visibility creates the conditions for the rest. Strategy number 2, become the expert in the room before you're in it. One of the most underrated business development strategies for introverts is deep niche positioning. When you're known as the person who knows a specific issue cold, not just good at it, but the go-to, clients and referral sources come to you. The inbound model is the introvert's natural habitat. This requires a deliberate choice. Most attorneys default to defining themselves broadly. I do M&A. I handle employment matters. The more precise your positioning, I focus on supply chain disputes in the life sciences sector, the more you become the obvious call when that specific problem lands. And here's the thing about expertise. Introverts tend to build it more patiently and more deeply than their extroverted counterparts, who are often spending that time in the room instead of in the material. Use that tendency, let it become your market position. Strategy 3, swap the mixer for the meeting. I want to be direct about cocktail receptions and large networking events. For most introverts, they're an energy negative activity. You go in with 15 units of social energy. You spend 12 fighting the discomfort of the room. You have 3 left over to actually make a connection. It's an inefficient use of capital. Replace as many of those events you can with one-on-one coffees, working lunches, or focused industry dinners with 4 to 6 people. These are environments where your natural capacity for depth works in your favor. You don't need to charm a crowd. You need to make one person feel like you understand their world better than anyone they've spoken to this week. And if you do have to attend a large event, because sometimes you do, give yourself permission to have 3 excellent conversations instead of 20 mediocre ones. 3 is enough. 3 is actually more productive. Strategy 4, the referral network approach. Here's a business development channel that gets underused by attorneys at every level. Strategic referral relationships. Accountants who could send work to corporate lawyers, financial advisors who refer estate planning attorneys, insurance brokers who know coverage counsel, bankers who have M&A relationships. Building 2 or 3 deep referral relationships with professionals in adjacent industries is something you could do entirely through focused one-on-one engagement over time. No mass networking required. You invest in understanding their business, sharing information that's useful to them, making introductions that benefit them before you ask for anything. The referral flow follows. The introvert's natural preference for depth over breadth is exactly the right orientation for this kind of relationship. Strategy 5, the 15-minute daily system. Business development that doesn't make it onto your calendar doesn't happen. Full stop. The most effective attorneys I've watched build books of business didn't do it in marathon sessions. They did it in 15-minute blocks every day, consistently over the years. The compounding effect is staggering. Monday, send one substantive follow-up to someone you met last week. Tuesday, reach out to a former colleague who just moved in-house. Wednesday, Post something thoughtful on LinkedIn about an issue in your practice area. Thursday, send an article with a 2-line personal note to a client you haven't spoken to in 60 days. Friday, confirm one lunch or coffee for the following week. That's it. That's the whole system. In aggregate, over 12 months, that's a transformed pipeline. So, where to actually meet clients if large events simply drain you? If cocktail parties are low ROI for introverts, where should you actually be? Industry conferences in your client sector, not just bar association events. The people in those rooms are potential clients and referral sources who are used to being approached by salespeople and are not used to being approached by an attorney who has done the homework to understand their business. You'll stand out immediately. Committee work and leadership roles in trade associations. This is a slower build, but it creates something mixers never can: repeated exposure to the same people in a context of shared purpose. Introverts thrive in structured environments where you develop relationships through working together rather than performing for each other. CLE programs and panels as a speaker, not just as an attendee. One speaking engagement puts you in front of a room and establishes authority before you've had a single individual conversation. For an introvert, that's an enormous leverage point. And the bar for landing a panel spot is lower than most attorneys assume. Alumni networks, both law school and undergrad. The relationships that convert fastest to business are often the ones that have the longest prior history. Your classmates who went in-house are making decisions now about who to call. Are you on their radar? And then 5 questions that work anywhere. Now, let's get specific. Whether you're at a mandatory mixer, a client dinner, a conference hallway, or a one-on-one coffee, the introvert's natural tendency is to go deep when given the chance. The problem is getting the invitation to go deep. These 5 questions are designed to do that. They're not icebreakers, they're openers that move quickly from surface to substance, from small talk to the kind of conversation where someone says, "I can't believe I'm telling you this," and where you start to genuinely understand whether there's a problem you could help solve. So, jump in. Question number 1. What's the issue on your team right now that nobody above you wants to hear about? This question cuts through the pleasantries immediately. Every in-house attorney, every GC, every business executive has something like this: a risk that isn't being escalated, a problem that's being papered over. When you ask this, you signal that you're not there to pitch. You're there to understand. People will tell you things in response to this question that they don't tell their current outside counsel. Question number 2. When you hired your last outside firm for a significant matter, what was the thing that made the decision actually easy or hard? This is intelligence gathering and trust building simultaneously. You learn how they buy. You learn what they actually value, which is almost never the thing on the RFP. And you give them the experience of someone who is genuinely curious about their perspective rather than just selling. Question number 3. If the regulatory environment in your space shifts the way most people seem to think it will, what keeps you up about that? This only works if you've done your homework, which is an introvert advantage, because you're more likely to have done it. A question like this specifically signals expertise before you've said a word about your practice. The answer will tell you whether there's a real need that maps to what you do. Question 4. What's changed in how your legal team is being evaluated internally in the last 2 or 3 years? In-house legal teams are under more pressure than ever to demonstrate ROI to their business clients. This question shows you understand their world, not just the law. It opens the door to a conversation about how outside counsel can actually help them look good internally, which is often the real buying criteria. And then question 5. What would make you feel like switching to a different firm for that work was the right call a year from now? This is a close question, but it doesn't feel like one. It Ask them to articulate success. When they answer it, they're telling you exactly what to deliver. And if you could follow up that with, "That's exactly the kind of matter we handle. Can I walk you through how we've approached that?" You have a conversation that's moved from pleasantry to pitch without either of you feeling like it happened. Here's what I want you to take from this. The legal market has spent decades telling introverts they have a business development problem. What it actually has is a measurement problem. It measures outreach volume and event attendance and who has the loudest voice in a partner meeting. It doesn't measure the depth of relationships, the quality of listening, the long term trust that produces clients who've been with someone for 15 years and would never think about going somewhere else. The extrovert plays a volume game: more calls, more events, more handshakes, more names on a list. The introvert plays a depth game: fewer relationships, but relationships where the other person feels genuinely known. In the legal market, depth wins. It just wins more slowly, which is why you have to start now. If you're an associate, the classmates sitting across from you at law school events are going to be GCs and decision makers in 8 to 12 years. The writing you do this year is building a reputation that will pay out when you're going up for partnership. The one-on-one coffee you schedule this week is the beginning of a relationship that closes business you haven't even imagined yet. If you're a partner or counsel trying to get to the next level, the question isn't whether you could build a bigger book, it's whether you're using your actual strengths to do it, or whether you're still trying to run someone else's playbook. Stop performing extroversion. Start deploying depth. I'm Andrew Wilcox. This is a Lateral Lawyer Brief. If you'd like to reach out to me, please call me at 850-274-7849 or email me at andrew@wilcox-legal.com. And as always, grateful, Andrew Wilcox.